A truck roared by overhead, and cold winds from the freeway above tore through the damp December morning fog. Beneath the I-80 overpass, next to a public dump on the west side of Oakland, a figure curled up inside a worn-out sleeping bag that reeked of mildew and time. No one knew his name. No one noticed him. To the city, he was just another part of the messy, sorrowful picture labeled the homeless. His name was Darius. And before he became the founder of one of the fastest-growing delivery companies in the United States, he was a survivor, living night after night under the biting cold, relying on cardboard and expired canned food. Darius was born in Fresno, into a black family that had migrated from Louisiana after the civil rights movement. His father drove a truck, and his mother worked as a seamstress in a small garment shop. Their home had 2 bedrooms, a tin roof, and the constant hum of a struggling air conditioner in the summer. They were poor, but they had each other. Until a truck accident when Darius was 11 took his father's life. His mother then took on 3 jobs to care for him and his older sister. She grew weaker over time, but still came home each night with a smile. "All you need to do is study hard, don't let anyone tell you you can't, just because of who you are," she told Darius once, looking him straight in the eyes as he clutched a threadbare pillow. But time waits for no one. When Darius was 14, his mother was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. His sister, just turned 18, left, taking with her the last sliver of hope the boy had that things might someday go back to how they were. Darius drifted from one relative's house to a shelter, to another social service office. The welfare system was understaffed and overcrowded. School was the only place that made him feel human, until he got expelled for fighting a classmate who mocked him for smelling like garbage. At 17, Darius officially hit the streets. First it was a bus stop awning. Then a park bench. Then the underpass, what he jokingly called his apartment with a freeway view. He had an old cloth bag with a few worn-out textbooks, a blurry photo of his mom, and a small notebook that never left his side. In it, he scribbled short lines, as if reminding himself, "I'm still alive. No one remembers me, but I must not forget myself." Darius didn't use drugs. He didn't beg. He tried asking for dishwashing jobs at nearby restaurants, but most turned him away with just one look. Once, a manager gave him a sandwich and said, "Get lost before the customers see you." On the coldest nights, he curled up like a dry cicada husk under a threadbare blanket, listening to distant sirens and wondering if he'd wake up the next morning. One time, a group of drunk teens set his sleeping bag on fire while he slept. They thought it was funny. He ran barefoot into the night, nearly losing his feet to frostbite. Darius had no phone. No ID. No family. No friends. He was invisible, in the truest sense of the word. So what keeps someone like that from giving up? What tethers a soul to life when it's hanging by a thread? Maybe it was that one time he saw a kid sitting inside a car parked by the curb. The child looked at him through the window, not with disgust, not with fear, just pure curiosity. In that moment, Darius saw a glimpse of his younger self in that gaze, eyes that still believed the world might be worth one more try. Or maybe it was the night he found a discarded magazine with the headline, "Homeless Man Starts Company, and Succeeds." Darius read the entire thing. Then read it again. Not because he believed in miracles, but because of the small print below. No one is ever too small to start over. That quote stayed with him through that winter. Along with a haunting question. Am I really out of chances? There were nights when Darius stared up at the underpass ceiling, covered in grime and cobwebs, feeling as empty as his growling stomach. But it wasn't the hunger that hurt most. It was the feeling of not belonging anywhere, of knowing that if he disappeared tomorrow, no one would care. He once tried checking into a shelter, but it was always full. And without ID or records, no one wanted to be responsible. One social worker told him bluntly, "I can't help you if you won't help yourself." He smirked. Help myself, with what? Each day was a silent battle. Darius would wake at 4 a.m. and walk for miles to find restaurants that opened early. One day, a Korean-owned donut shop gave him a chance as a dishwasher. The pay was low, but it was enough to buy a second-hand coat from a charity store. He began saving cardboard boxes, not to sleep on, but to write down ideas. Any idea that popped into his mind. An hourly rental service for small trucks. An anonymous messaging app for homeless people needing help. A solar-powered self-heating sleeping bag. None of the ideas turned into reality. But he kept writing, because writing meant he was still thinking. And thinking meant he wasn't dead yet. But each step forward came with a fall. After 2 months working at the donut shop, Darius was mugged on his way home. They didn't just steal his money, they beat him so badly he broke 2 ribs. He lay unconscious beside a trash bin all night before someone finally called an ambulance. At the hospital, he got treated for a few days, then was asked to leave because he didn't have insurance. No one came to pick him up. No one asked how he was doing. The last nurse to check on him gave him a tired, pitying look. "You should go back to the community center," she said. But going back meant returning to the underpass. Back to the stench of sewage and the constant blare of traffic. Back to that feeling of being rejected, by society, and by himself. There was a time Darius stood in front of the glass window of a tech store. Inside, new phones gleamed under bright lights, displayed like dreams. He saw his own reflection in the glass, a dark-skinned man with scruffy facial hair and tired, sunken eyes. He asked himself, who is this man? Is this really me? Then came a rainy day when everything felt damp and heavy. Darius walked into the public library, not to escape the rain, but just to find a place that still felt peaceful. He sat among the empty chairs and opened an old book on entrepreneurship that someone had left behind. That was the first time he read something that made his heart pound. Everything you need might already be inside your head, if you choose to see it as a treasure, not a burden. He closed the book, but the words didn't leave him. They were like a seed, slowly beginning to grow beneath the dry soil of self-doubt and unhealed wounds. In the weeks that followed, Darius kept going back to the library. At first, just to read. Then he started using the public computers, 1 hour a day, then 2. He didn't type well, but he searched for everything. How to write a resume with no degree. How to get an ID if you're homeless. How to start a business with $0. He read every line, took notes on every detail. He failed over and over. Every job application was met with silence. Every idea he sent out got no response. Some nights, he threw his notebook against the wall beneath the bridge, then quietly picked it back up in the dark. Then, one May night, lying between 2 cold sheets of cardboard, a quiet thought rose in his mind. What if I didn't need someone to give me a chance? What if I made my own? That thought flashed like lightning in a sky full of dark clouds. If no one gives me a chance, he wondered, why don't I create one myself? It wasn't a clear decision, just a slow-burning urge that crept into his every thought. Darius started using everything around him, scraps of paper, discarded newspapers, even free community workshops. He learned to type faster, looked up every business term he didn't understand. More importantly, he learned to stop blaming himself for every failure. One day, by chance, he met Linda, a volunteer with a nonprofit that helped homeless individuals transition to new careers. Linda didn't see the dirt or torn clothes. She saw a man with resilience, someone hungry for change. Linda helped him craft a resume, guided him through office etiquette, and most importantly, reminded him to believe in himself. We don't choose where we start, but we choose where we go, she said. Darius carried that sentence in his heart. But stepping out of the darkness wasn't easy. Rejections kept coming, dozens of them, from logistics and delivery companies. Each one sent him back under the bridge, feeling crushed by his own dream. Yet from that disappointment, a small idea took root. He realized there were many people like him, homeless or unemployed, who needed to move things or relocate but lacked vehicles or any way to connect with customers. Why not create a platform that links people who need help moving with those who have transportation and want to earn? That idea was a small but warm light in Darius' cold world. He began sketching it out, writing mini plans on any scrap of paper he could find. With Linda's help, he connected with a startup incubator that supported immigrants and struggling individuals. There, he learned how to build a realistic business plan. Darius knew this was a turning point. But the road ahead was still long and full of obstacles, no funding, limited tech skills, no network. Still, every time things got hard, he thought about the cold nights under the bridge, the curious eyes of that child in the car window, the words that had once kept him alive. He took one small step at a time, working whenever he could, learning constantly, refusing to give up. And then, after months of effort, Darius launched a small delivery connection app, a place where people like him could take control of their work and earn on their own terms. At first, it only had a few dozen users, mostly friends and former homeless peers from the support group. But from there, word about Darius app began to spread like a fresh breeze among those still struggling to find their place in society. Early customers sent thank you notes. Users became small stories of trust and change. The humble beginnings gave him strength. Darius didn't just build a business, he began rebuilding belief in himself. Day by day, he stood taller, walked a new path, one that might take him farther than he ever dared to dream. But was that light strong enough to chase away the shadows that had followed him for so long? As time went on, Darius became more than a survivor, he became an inspiration. His small delivery connection app didn't just grow in users, it grew into a movement. A movement for the overlooked. For the forgotten. For those society had once cast aside, just like it once did to him. He remembers the days he lay huddled under the bridge, certain his life was over, convinced there was nothing left worth trying for. Yet now he stands atop a dream he built from the shattered pieces of his past. Darius went on to found a non-profit that offers job skills training to people experiencing homelessness and to immigrant workers, giving them a path to steady employment, and, just as crucial, teaching them how to create opportunities for themselves. Whenever he sees gratitude and joy light up the faces of those he helps, he flashes back to who he was just a few years earlier, a hollow man with no home, abandoned by the very world he now strives to change. Life isn't just about what we get, Darius tells young people at a community center, it's about what we give. Today, Darius is no longer homeless, no longer a figure lurking in the shadows. He is a billionaire entrepreneur with a humble spirit, thankful for every step that brought him here. But the most important thing isn't the material wealth. It's the revival of faith, the conviction that no matter how you begin, no matter how deep life pushes you down, you can stand up, move forward, and make a difference. Have you ever imagined that one day you might inspire others the way Darius does? Are you willing to recognize people who are struggling and give them a chance? Darius's story reminds us that each of us holds the power to transform our own life, and that sometimes the brightest light springs from the darkest places. Will you choose to believe that?